Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 258, interview with client Amy and her sober retreat testimonial. Well, hello. I'm so excited about today's podcast. This is definitely a good one to lace up those sneakers and go for a long walk. I have my client Amy back on the podcast. You may remember Amy. I've actually had a couple of Amy's on the podcast. But Amy and her sister-in-law Emily were on the podcast earlier this summer. And Amy has continued to go on and attend one of my sober retreats with me and work with me privately. And she wanted to come on the podcast and share her experience and her journey with changing her relationship with alcohol and give you all an update on what's going on with her now after that retreat and some really awesome insights about how she has been able to be successful over this journey. I really hope you enjoy, and we will talk to you soon. Welcome back to the podcast, Amy.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So you were on the podcast a few months ago in, I think, July or the summertime. And we're linking up that original episode with Amy and her sister-in-law, Emily, which was really, really fun because you guys are both in my coaching program at the same time. But you have had some major growth and some transformation since then. And I just wanted to bring you back on the podcast to kind of share your journey and your thought process on what has changed and where you are now. So we can kind of jump in and kind of go from there. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan. Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So why don't you kind of give us a little recap to start? Like, where were you, before you joined the program? Like, what was happening with your relationship with alcohol? How much you were drinking? Tell us about the process when you joined Alive AF, the membership, and kind of get us caught up to now.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So I'll give you the very short version because I know I gave you the very long version the first time I was on, but and a lot of times since then. But
they haven't heard it all though, so don't feel like you're boring me.
That's true. So long story short, I just reflecting on my relationship with alcohol over the course of my life. So I was my family was very, I would say, social drinkers. My parents didn't drink a whole lot when I was a little kid. They definitely did socially, but I never experienced any sort of trauma around alcohol or anything like that when I was younger. It was always at family gatherings, but everyone in my family was always, to me, seemed to manage it well. Nobody was mean or scary, or it wasn't a bad thing. Didn't drink at all in high school. I was very much a rule follower, wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing and all that. Did drink in college. That's really when my relationship with it started. And I would say I was this isn't even right, but a very normal college drinker. I went to IU. That it was the culture. It was Thursday through Sunday. You were going out, doing different things. And, I was very high achieving in college and did just fine and graduated just fine. But that's really when I just became acquainted with alcohol, and we certainly were drinking to get drunk in college. I mean, that's what we did. Yeah. So, that's kind of where that started. After college, moved to Chicago for about 6 years. And that's kind of when my adult drinking began, where it stopped being we did have this little pod of friends in Chicago that came with us from high school and college. And so we would go out on the weekends and stuff like that. But that's kind of when the nightly wine would come in. And I think I've told you this before. I just felt like it was much fancier and more sophisticated to be drinking wine, with my dinner at home. So, did that. And then I would say it really got to be an everyday couple of glasses of wine situation, sort of the older I got, mid-20s. Had my daughter at 28. was definitely heavy in the mommy wine culture. There's a nice picture of me on Facebook holding a wine glass that says like, raising tiny humans is exhausting and haha, isn't this funny? And so, I mean, that's when it really became a habit for my husband and I both. We were picking up bottles of wine every night. That's what we were drinking. We felt like that's what everybody else our age was doing. And that's just kind of what the culture was. Fast forward to all the way to 2020. When the pandemic hit, for personal reasons, my husband decided to quit drinking right before the pandemic started. So I was going to be supportive of that and not drink at home. And that was right at the beginning of March. And then March 13th, the world said, you're not going anywhere except for home. And I was like, cool. So I don't drink anymore. Great. So I white knuckled myself through about 3 months alcohol free at that point. And it was white knuckle. I mean, I had like family members that were like, oh, you're being so good and supportive, but like, couldn't you just like keep wine in the basement and like he wouldn't know that you were drinking? Yeah. And I was like, well, I feel like that's not probably right. So I didn't do that. But what I did do was, as soon as the world opened up a little bit and I was able to get together with my friends outdoors, I had like a group of 6 of us that had been close forever, and we would meet a couple, like every other week or so. It was always outside. And then it was my excuse. Like, I'm not drinking at home. So like, this is my night to drink. And I came home with a couple of, the mornings after, I woke up with a couple of gnarly hangovers, like of which I had not experienced really since college, with 2 little kids at home at this point. So like, talk about feeling not fantastic, trying to parent your kids when you can barely move and you feel like you're going to throw up every minute. And that's kind of when I started to think like, okay, well, I know this isn't normal drinking. Like, I know that my relationship, I mean, I wouldn't have even had these words at the time, but like, I knew that it wasn't what I wanted my relationship with alcohol to be. But I also didn't know any other way of doing it. Yeah. So I just kind of thought, like, I know I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink every day. I don't even drink most days, but I also know that once I start, I don't want to stop. And like, I knew that this wasn't necessarily a healthy relationship with it. So that's kind of when I really started thinking about moderation and playing a lot of the games with myself around, okay, well, you're not allowed to drink on these days, or only this many glasses a week, or only this specific type. I would first do, okay, only white wine because it doesn't give me as much of a headache, or okay, now only red wine because it's good for you, is what, what I was reading and whatever. So about a year after that, I would say probably spring of 2021, my sister-in-law, who was on the podcast with me, shared your podcast with me. And I really grasped onto the idea of just not beating myself up about when I drank more than I wanted to, or when I was feeling crummy. So I had gotten to the point where I wasn't drinking like a ton at a time, but enough that I would wake up feeling puffy and tired. And I would text her and say that, and she would say, don't beat yourself up about it. It's not going to help. And so that's when she shared it. And I really loved listening to your podcast. I listened to it while I cooked dinner and whatever. And I really started doing, before I even thought about cutting back or making a drink plan or anything like that, I really started trying to rewrite my thoughts that were self-deprecating. And I didn't realize how many of my thoughts, both around alcohol and around other things, were just beating myself up. Like, you don't work out hard enough. Why are you so lazy? Like, if you would just do this, you'd be better at work. Like there's so much of that going on all the time. So I got really good at that and stopped beating myself up and started feeling really good. And then followed her again when she decided to join Alive AF. And I decided just to kind of give it a shot because I was still having overdrinks more often than I wanted to, and was still definitely using it to de-stress and as a coping mechanism. but I joined a live AF with the goal to just get to the point where I wasn't feeling crummy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to quit drinking.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely wanted to moderate. And yeah, I joined in June, and life is very different in December now.
Yeah. So catch us up. So you joined in June, you started making drink plans, doing the course, you got coaching, engaged in the community, all of that. And then I think you had a 30-day break in there too, right?
I had a couple of attempted 30-day breaks, but I would get like 27 days in, or, start a couple days late and like fudge a little bit on it here and there. But I did have some success as far as like big chunks of time. And I noticed, I will say, when I joined, even though I wasn't planning on stopping drinking, I was committed to fully doing the work because I committed to paying for it every month. I didn't want it to be a waste. And I was going to be honest with myself about what was going on. And so I think that that's key for anybody who's joining is like, don't half-ass it. Like, you don't have to know what you want the end result to look like, but you do have to know that you're going to be committed to doing the work, because then you'll eventually get to what you want your end result to be like.
Yeah. How do you stay committed though? Let's talk about that. Because like you mentioned, how do you stay committed? Because you even mentioned when we were talking earlier that whenever you get excited about joining something new, whether it's an exercise program or a diet program, or I don't know, learning some new craft or whatever, people get all motivated, excited at the beginning, and then that wanes off. So how did you stay committed throughout that process?
I really think the fact that I was paying for it was big for me personally. Like I just knew I couldn't justify spending money on it if it was something that I wasn't going to do. But I give a lot of credit to your program for that, because one, there was no pressure of what I needed to do. So, I mean, there was pressure as far as you should be doing your worksheets, you should be doing your evaluations, you should be planning your drinks, but whatever was on that plan was totally up to me. And I knew, like, you weren't telling me I didn't have to drink anymore. You weren't telling me what my limit was. And so I was able to sort of do that on my own. But you also just make it really freaking fun. Like, the Facebook group is so fun. The webinars are, it's just so lighthearted and real. And I knew that from your podcast, that I just knew I was going to enjoy interacting with you. And like getting to interact with you and Coach Steph, and then all of these like-minded women who build this amazing community on the back end. Like, I told you, I just messaged you last week and told you, I think I'm going to, I'm in a good place. I think I'm going to cancel my Live AF. And then like 2 days later, I was like, no, wait, don't do it. I don't want to be out of the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it is. It's fun. And like, you feel like you have this support system.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important for people to hear, is that in order for us to change any habit, no matter if it's drinking or anything that we're trying to undo, we have to make it interesting and enjoyable. Otherwise, because that's just how our brain works. We're motivated to seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's our natural intrinsic motivation. And so I want to make this, I also just think I am fun. You are. I believe that. That's so I think it naturally comes through. But it's also strategic in that we want to keep this engaging. And I don't want anyone to feel shame or judged or like they can't put 4 drinks on their plan if that's really what they want to do. That they feel supported no matter what. And I'm glad to hear that comes through, because that does keep you going for longer. If it's a miserable process and it's hard and you're going to be like, well, why did you do that? And you're not following the rules and you have to start over and all of that stuff, is people quit. And I don't want people to quit, because I want them to hear and get to where you and I are now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing about, it's not only just fun and like rainbows and sunshine in the Facebook group, it's people, you can be really vulnerable in that space, and every single person in that space is supportive, tells you what you need to hear gently, but like is just there to tell you get back on the horse and do the work, and we're here to support you. So it's a really great place, really great community.
Awesome. So when you did have a failure, though, like getting back to the commitment question and how you kept doing it and showing up and doing the work, if you did have a misstep or you did overdrink while you're in the program, like how did you motivate yourself to keep looking at it and keep moving forward?
So I really think coming in, having done the groundwork that you set about not beating myself up was key. I spent, by the time I joined Alive AF, I had already given up beating myself up for those mistakes. Or at least gotten really close to that. I mean, I'm still a human being, right?
Yeah.
Like they still come in. But I knew it wasn't going to get me anywhere. So I think I didn't throw myself a pity party because I had already thrown myself plenty. And I used your evaluation tool. I actually got to the point where I was doing an evaluation every single day, whether I overdrank or not, just to make it part of my daily routine. And I would just fill out the parts of the evaluation that made sense if I didn't overdrink. And so with having that as just part of my morning routine, it made it just very natural to really evaluate why I did overdrink when I did.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's really important because usually when people stop and they have an overdrink, they feel shitty physically, and then mentally it triggers you to have terrible thoughts. I mean, it's just the natural process of it. You can't really prevent it from coming in, but you can control the dialogue after you're aware, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you're going to talk to yourself pretty shitty if you don't follow your plan. And that's actually not a bad thing.
No.
It's like
because
you're out of alignment. Yeah, you're out of alignment with how you want to be. So of course it's going to feel bad. Right. Because you didn't follow through on what you said you would do. And so, but the evaluation part redirects your mind and your thinking process around that. So you learn from that mistake and you can keep moving forward. But people who stay in that shame that they didn't do it and they can't do it and see they what were they thinking? They're never going to be able to figure this out and you're a piece of shit. All that prevents them from having the progress that they could have because they stop doing the work in those moments and then they have big gaps and then they might start to feel better and then start doing it again. But the consistency, I think, is so, so important. Yep. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about being consistent.
Building that into your day is huge too. I cannot believe I'm going to say this out loud, knowing who I was before, but I love waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning now. And that's when I do my journaling. Do you know how
much this delights me, by the way?
I know. My mom actually texted me this morning at 5:30 about something. And she's like, I'm so sorry if I woke you up. I said, I've been awake for a half an hour. I bet you never thought you'd hear that. And she's like, I know. Who are you? But I think it doesn't have to be 5 o'clock in the morning, but setting aside, and it's 10, 15 minutes. It's not a big chunk of time. Printing out those worksheets. I took your advice and I would go to Staples. I'd have them bound. I'd have them ready in my space where I was going to be able to do it. And then just building that routine in is huge. I just think that routine and the consistency for me was big. And it really got to the point where since I was doing the evaluation every day, it was like, if I would wake up and I had overdrank or gone off plan, I would be like, oh man, you do wake up and you're like, come on, what was I thinking? And then I would just think well, this is going to be a good evaluation today. That was it. And then you have the thing to do to fix it or to move on. And then you move on and you move on with your day and you hit restart.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you also did a good job of just taking it one step at a time, which it's so cliche, but just focusing on the one thing that's in front of you and the one obstacle that you need to overcome instead of glorifying or globalizing one overdrink to meaning this big statement of I can't do this and I'm failing again and all of that. I never heard that from you.
Well, a lot of the stuff in your program really lends itself well to that because even though it wasn't my goal to quit drinking and even though I was planning drinks and having overdrinks, if I reflected even just a little bit, I was seeing improvement the entire way. I was seeing the amount that I was drinking go down overall. I was having less and less overdrinks the more I moved along in the program. And then the community and you just really remind us consistently to focus on the wins.
Yeah.
That even though you had missteps, you also have had all of these huge wins since you started.
Good. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's get more current. So that was when you first started and through the summer and stuff, but then you decided to come and sign up to go to the Cancun retreat with me. You want to tell me about
I
that?
did. About why I signed up, or
Yeah.
do you want me to talk for the next 45 minutes about the Cancun retreat? Because I could do that too.
we can do both. But what made you like pull the trigger and like up level your coaching experience with me?
So, a few things. I mean, just the fact that the experience itself looked amazing. I was like, yeah, who doesn't want to go to Cancun for 5 days and hang out and, do all of that? So of course it just looked fun. I personally have struggled with anxiety, both around international travel alone, as well as separation anxiety from my kids, as well as letting go of some control and allowing my husband to do things without me. You're laughing. I know that the people on the podcast can't see it, but she's like, yeah, nice of you to finally admit it.
I'm not laughing about your suffering though. I'm just so glad that you were open to looking at that and getting some support.
Yes. Yeah. And so I knew as stupid as it sounds, this vacation, this retreat that was going to be a real treat for me was also going to help me work through a lot of emotions that have come up for me a lot of times throughout my life. Like I've been homesick since I was a kid. I haven't liked traveling alone since I was a kid. And so I think just knowing I was going to be in a safe place with my life coach literally next door to me and the ability to work through this stuff without alcohol, because, I have traveled alone as an adult. I am a sales representative. I go to a conference every year in Vegas, and I was never homesick then because I had 3 glasses of wine in my system to go to bed.
Right.
And so I knew I was going to be able to get to look at those emotions in a safe place while enjoying the beautiful Cancun and all that it had to offer. So that's really why I decided to do it.
That's awesome. So you wanted to do the retreat and the coaching to help you expand emotionally in other areas of your life. And I like to think of it as like the impact that being free from that anxious ridden life, right? Like it holds you back, right? It holds you back from doing bigger things, from taking bigger risks when you're scared all the time or nervous or anxious about leaving things or trying to control every single detail and like how everybody's going to feel when you're gone and what they're going to do and what you're going to do. It's overwhelming and it's painful.
Yeah.
And so being willing to address that through that is an amazing thing. And it takes some bravery to be willing to do that.
Well, and I guess I'm sort of forgetting where I was too when I decided to join, because I'm living in my happy cloud now. But I was still drinking moderately when I decided to join. And so I did think, okay, this is going to be really nice to get a vacation under my belt in this, like, exactly what you said, going to this all-inclusive resort where I could literally pick up the phone or walk down to the bar at any time and do that. I wanted to be able to experience a vacation without it. So that was another big reason why.
Awesome. And so talk to me about the support that you got and the coaching you got before you went to the retreat. So listeners, if you're not aware, the coaching and retreat packages include 2 months of support before you get to the retreat so that you get in a good state of mind. Like Amy's goal was to reduce her anxiety and let go of some control on things before she went to the retreat so she could enjoy herself. So that's the kind of coaching. We can coach on anything, any goals that you have before the retreat so you can actually enjoy it while you're there. You're just not thrown into a situation and have to manage all of your feelings. So do you want to talk about what that was like?
Yeah. I would say the majority of our individual calls were really focused on all of my anxiety around leaving. I mean, I was a broken record. I don't want to leave my kids. I feel guilty for leaving my kids. My daughter is scared at bedtime and I'm the only one that can calm her down, and I'm selfish and I'm, like I could go on for years. And those individual calls were just instrumental in stopping that thought spiral and helping me to reframe how good this was going to be for everybody and like everybody in my family. And I'm not going to lie to you. I was like yeah, okay, I see what you're saying, but like, we'll see. Like, I think probably what's actually going to happen is it's going to be a catastrophe and my husband's going to deal with it and everyone will be alive, but miserable the whole time I'm gone. What actually happened was exactly what you said. I mean, bedtime now when I came home has been a million times easier. My daughter actually vocalized that she thinks because I left, her anxiety has gone away. Jeez. She said that the other day.
Wow.
And so I just like, you helped me see that when my gut was telling me just pull the plug. Like, it's going to be easier to just stay home and stay the course. So that was really, really beneficial on the individual calls. And then I loved the group coaching calls where I just got a little bit of time to get to know everybody. Part of the anxiety for me about going was that I knew you through coaching, but I didn't really know anybody else except for what I had seen on the Facebook group. So it was nice to put faces with names, hear what they were struggling with, where they were at. And those women, holy cow, like,
I know.
Just amazing, amazing, amazing. Like soul sisters for life after the trip.
Absolutely. They're so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, like the support that you got beforehand helped you practice a little bit and implement some of the tools that we were talking about and got you feeling more comfortable about it before you're just like, you're going to implement all these new things. You're not even going to be there. Right.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we got to
you helped me with
brainstorm on some
tangible
ideas
things.
and actual tactical things that you could try and implement with your family before you went.
Yeah. The kids got to practice going to bed with dad, doing the bedtime routine. We added some things for my daughter. Yes, absolutely. There were tangible pieces that we got to try that certainly helped me feel better about leaving.
That's awesome. All right. Well, what happened on the trip for you?
That's a very big question.
So, what was your biggest like wow factor about it?
Oh goodness. I mean, there were so many. So like, I loved the excursion that we went on. It was the whole trip was the perfect combination of adrenaline and relaxation and, like soul searching, I would say. But I expected that. Like I expected when I did this trip, you had kind of given us an idea of what we were going to be able to do. So I knew there would be, this beautiful spa, and I knew the resort, and I knew the excursion, and that all lived up to what I expected it, plus some. What I did not expect was to come home with such inspiration for what was next in my coming year. I kind of just figured the mental work that I was going to do was all the stuff we did with coaching up to the beginning, as far as like, okay, I'm overcoming my anxiety and, all that stuff. But I got so much more out of it because I left clear-headed with concrete ideas of what I want to accomplish this year. And not just what I want to accomplish, but how I want to feel and how I want to be and what's next. And just with like this whole big open world in front of me. And I didn't expect that to happen.
Wow.
I think, there were 2 activities that you suggested that we do that really kind of solidified that for me. The first was what we did beforehand with the word of the year meditation and visualization. That was huge for me and I didn't expect it to be. And then the oracle reading, when you did the cards, just like mine hit the nail on the head. And I literally have it as my screensaver, the picture of it, to remind myself that that's what I'm doing this year.
Yeah. That was probably one of my favorite group activities, was that.
It was amazing.
Very intimate discussion and exploration we had around people's energies and their words and things. Like, it was so good.
Yeah. Pre-retreat, I would have considered myself open-minded. Post-retreat, I'm like, but like very skeptical about stuff like that, right? Post-retreat, I'm like, universe, like, send me all of your positive juju. Like, I believe in all of it. I'm like, oh, if I just manifest it, it will come to me. Like, it's ridiculous. So I have to find a little bit of like a happy medium, I think.
No, go for it. Lean in.
Right? Like, who cares if I'm wrong?
Seriously, I just think, you know what I think about all of that? Like, I'm not a super spiritual person, although some people might consider me as one. I just think it's fun. It's
Yeah.
magical. It makes me feel good to think about magic and the universe delivering me these surprise gifts.
Yes.
And so when
And
I think about that, it makes me feel good. And then I go on to do great things. So that's
and
how I
what do
like
you
to
get
think.
by like being a skeptic, right? Like when you think
Exactly.
that and then you're like, no, that's a bunch of mumbo jumbo.
Hmm.
All you do is shut down any chance of anything positive coming your way.
Yeah.
Like, who cares if you're wrong? Who
Right.
cares if these are just coming out of your mind and not the
Yeah,
universe? They're
exactly.
still happening.
Yes. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting. So you went to the retreat, you stayed sober through airport travel, um, the airplane, arriving in
Yep.
Cancun, going to an
Yes.
all-inclusive resort without drinking. Yeah,
Yep.
amazing, right?
I did. I also came home with a love of mocktails. Like, I think
Yeah.
it's really fun to mix different flavors of sparkling water with different
Mm-hmm.
juices and throw
Mm-hmm.
in some pretty things. And so that's fun. Yes, I did all of that. I will say, I think I skipped over a little piece. So, a big part of my story since I last was on, and then also some coaching that you gave me, was on October 1st, I was diagnosed with type 1.5 diabetes, which was a big shock for me. Like, no family history, it's autoimmune, it's like a whole, I'm not going to go into that, but it was a big change. And in October, I went to see my endocrinologist about how to manage it and all that. And as you know, she told me, well, some red wine, like a little bit of red wine every day, will actually help keep your blood sugar lower. And so what does that do? Like, at the same time of being told, you really need to cut back on your sugar, low carb, as we get this all figured out and whatever, plus all this new medication, I kind of like walked out thinking, well, the only treat I have left in the world is red wine that I can have. So October was, I went September 30th, I was going to do sober October. October 1st, I was diagnosed. And I think I drank, and I didn't overdrink. I never had more than 2 glasses of wine, but I think I drank like 28 out of the 31 days in October. Just because that's like where my mind.
You were given permission that was okay.
I was given permission. Yeah. Plus, I felt like that was it. The rest of my life was going to be terrible, except for the rest, whatever. So, you coached me a lot around all of that, and just about how, medical professionals can't really, like, they're going to tell me that because if I was really to make the perfect lifestyle change that I needed to in order to manage this perfectly, it's way too much to bite off at one time. So she was kind of throwing me a bone of something that wouldn't be terrible. Along with the fact that you really helped me see that this is not a tragedy, it's an opportunity. Like, this is just another routine that I am following in order to keep myself healthy. And so many good things have come out of that mind shift. Like, I am the one who's preparing most of the meals for my family, which means every single person in this house is now eating a healthier diet. I've been able to research and, quite frankly, purchase healthier food guilt-free because I know that it's what's better for my body, and then everybody's benefiting off of that. I have started doing more holistic exercise instead of, I was a cardio junkie and that was spiking my blood sugar. So I've implemented yoga and strength training and like things that I was actively avoiding before. So, and like the actual parts of managing it haven't been that bad. So it's just, actually, they've not been bad at all. It's like taking a little bit of medication and being a little bit mindful of what I eat. So I really appreciate that you coached me through that. And then fast forward, November 5th was the day after my son. Well, no, I'm sorry. November 4th is my son's birthday. And that evening we did the big birthday party. We did whatever, stopped at my grandparents' house, and my grandpa sat down this like huge glass of red wine in front of me because that's what I typically would do. Right. And I took like 3 drinks of it. And I was like, I don't even want this. Like, I mean, I didn't say it rudely like that to him. That's what I thought in my mind. Yeah. Like, this doesn't taste good. I can already feel that like my eyes are like starting to feel baggier. Like, I know I'm not going to sleep as well tonight. And I dumped the rest of it down the sink. And that was the last glass of alcohol that I've had since then. And so I'm about 6 weeks out. And truly for me, it was a switch that flipped. It was it was, yes, I'm a drinker too. I know I never want that again.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't magic. It was because of all the groundwork you laid with me over the last 6 weeks, and that I could do it on my own terms and see the successes and really pay attention to how I felt when I drank and when I didn't.
Yeah.
That
I think
all of a sudden
that
when
is,
I was ready,
I
was ready.
When you were doing that, when you got your diagnosis and then you were sort of given permission by your doctor that it wasn't bad, right? That you could have that. I think all along that month, every time you drank, you had a conflict with it.
100%.
And you were out of alignment, like you were like ignoring yourself a little bit about really what you wanted, because you had already had big long breaks before that and had really, really cut back, and you had experienced how good you felt. I remember you telling me that. And so by the time you got to the grandpa experience, I think you were just like, when you are so aware and you start to feel that droop, that immediate deflation that alcohol does, it's a depressant, right? So you feel immediately like your balloon just kind of deflates a little bit. When you were conscious enough of that, because you had done all that groundwork, like you said, it became very real for you.
That day was so fun for me. I love my kids' birthdays, and we had the best day, right? Like I was on this like natural high on life, like enjoyed my son, watching him like with his friends and all this stuff. And then I took the drinks and I was like, I just felt like a slug.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to feel this joy, not this.
Yes.
So yeah. And so I think that at that point, the retreat flipped for me. I went from, okay, I'm going to celebrate my 1 month of being alcohol free while I'm in Cancun. So this is my big grand finale celebration trip. And it was really fun. It was great to be with that group of women when I was like, today's my 30 days. And everybody was all excited.
Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So now you're on the other side of it. So I want to talk about that a little bit. We were talking earlier about, we just want to somehow explain, right? Like how you feel right now. It's euphoric. It is. It's like life-changing. It's a total departure of what it looks like when you're dabbling and over drinking occasionally, even if it's not that much. It's a numbed life, right? It's a downplayed life versus this alive as fuck life that you have embraced, right? Where your emotions, you get to feel all of them, the good ones and the bad ones, right? And it's amazing. And you have so much more clarity. You're not driven by alcohol at all. You're not driven to what you're going to have to drink, where you're going to get it, what's it going to be like, any of that stuff. So you have so much more space now to focus on. You've decided to write a book, start children's and school programs. Like there's so much more you're excited about and motivated and driven towards. Can you just talk about that sort of before and after comparison a little bit?
Yeah. So, like I said, when we started, I did not go into Alive AF with the goal of quitting drinking. I went in with the goal of moderating my drinking so that I wasn't feeling crummy from it, which, if I'm being completely honest, if you're drinking regularly, I don't think that there's a way that you can stop yourself from feeling at least a little bit crummier than you need to feel, if that makes sense. And I wouldn't have said that, except that, and this wasn't immediate, but it was like, I've seen over the last, I think I'm like 45 days or something now, the further away I get from the last time I drank, I am legitimately a happier person. And I was a happy person before, right? Like I wasn't miserable. I wasn't rock bottom. I was living my life, having a good time, but it felt like everything was just okay and pretty cool unless there was alcohol involved. Then like if we were going to have drinks while we were doing something, then it was going to be really fun. And the more I paid attention to it in your program, the more I realized that like really fun part lasts for like 20 minutes. And then after that, it's all the garbage afterwards, like the bad sleep, all of that is just so not worth it. And I think when I started, I was like, man, like these people have really talked themselves into the fact that like, this is a good idea. Like there's no way that they're actually happier than us. Like they just can't moderate whatever. But my my brain feels more capable of true joy than it did when I was drinking, even moderately. Little things like my husband noticed that I'm laughing out loud more often at TV, at his stupid jokes, like at whatever, like it's not, I'm just like more present and more awake. And there are things like, if you really do the research around what alcohol does to your brain, it creates artificial levels of dopamine in your brain, so that even when you're not actively drinking or right off of it, you can't hit that same level of high with something that's not alcohol.
Yes.
So everything literally does feel duller.
Yeah.
Your kids' laughter, their hugs, like, you know, all of the stuff that brings you joy in real life actually loses some of its joy because of what your brain's doing. And that is, I mean, it's euphoric. Like, I just feel like I'm seeing things for the first time. I told you Christmas is coming up, and I'm like, love it. Like, I'm in awe of the lights, and like, I've enjoyed shopping, and like, I can take my time and be slow with baking Christmas cookies with my kids and not be rushing because I want to get to the point of the day where I can have my glass of wine, or crabbing at them because I've already had my glass of wine and now I'm snippy, you know, like, it's just, it's like being a kid again, almost.
Yeah.
Just everything's exciting again.
I love that. Yeah. So we were talking.
And I know it's hard to believe when you're not doing it.
I know. It's hard, especially when you're kind of suffering with over drinking and what that feels like, right? That's very fresh for you. Like, you know what that feels like. It's, for me, 5.5 years out, I still know what I remember feeling that way. Yeah. And so it's hard to imagine, if you're there and still struggling with it, to be here, like Amy, where Amy and I are. The biggest thing I can say is just be excited about it. We were talking about this earlier, right? It's like, I wish people were excited about the journey of, seriously reducing how much you're drinking or going alcohol free, as excited as they were about getting married, starting a new job, buying a new home, any sort of big lifestyle growth opportunity that we do in our lives. That's what I wish people would be excited about. I wish it was naturally like, oh my God, you're considering not drinking anymore? Oh my God, let's have a fucking party. Holy shit. What are you going to plan after that? Like, what are you going to do? Like, we all, all these questions we get. What are you going to do when your kids leave the house? What are you going to do now that you're retired? What are you going to do once you get married? Are you going to have kids? Like, that's the excitement that I wish that we had and celebrated in a society when people say or decide, I'm thinking about changing my relationship with alcohol. It should be like, let's go. Let's do this. You are in for a ride of a lifetime, because it truly does feel like that. And I just wish people would believe me. And I know a lot of you do. And I think you believe me, Amy, and you trusted me at least enough to like do what I told you to do. Yes. Well, and then you got to see for yourself, but
it's huge that you let people come to it on their own, because I was able to see the small successes along the way, which allowed for that light switch moment to happen. I call it my Christmas lights moment, where like I was putting up the Christmas lights outside, right? And like, this strand didn't work, so I had to switch it out for a different one, or I didn't like how it was placed, so I had to like make all these tweaks, and then it got cold, so I went inside and made some hot chocolate and yada yada. And then finally, after I got everything right, I plugged it in, and it was like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation, right? Like, that's what my experience with quitting drinking was like. It was the evaluation and the worksheets and the coaching and the failures and the successes and the Facebook group. And then all of a sudden the lights just went on.
Yeah.
And I know it won't be that way for everybody, but I will say to anybody listening, I will do what Angela just did. If you decide to quit drinking and you want somebody to be as excited for you as if you're getting married, like, you just call me and I'll do it. Because honestly, you did that for me, but I have my sister-in-law who did that for me too.
Yeah.
She's 6 months alcohol free at
Shout
this point.
Out to
like
Emily.
I know. And she's been, 5 months ahead of me on this thing the whole time. And she is my cheerleader. She's the one that when I had successes, I would text her and I knew she would understand. So, I can't discount that, but
Yeah, I think
It's
it's
just,
really important to put yourself in an environment, or at least in a group, in some sort of way where you're surrounded by other people that do cheer you on and do
yeah.
want to celebrate every step of the way. It's hard to rely on family and close friends. Sometimes you think you're very
Hmm.
fortunate with your
I
husband
am.
and her and some of your other friends, but most people don't have people like that because most
Right.
of our people also drink
Yep.
and they just don't get it unless they're really actively doing it themselves. So I
Yeah.
think the container, even if it's not my container, find a container, that you feel comfortable in, that feels supportive
Yes.
and like you belong to it. But going back to what you briefly mentioned about like you're glad that I don't tell you what to do.
Hmm.
We talked about this earlier. If I would have said, Amy, you should come join my sober program, you
Yeah.
wouldn't be here right now, right?
Nope. Not
Yeah.
a chance.
Yeah.
Because that wasn't my goal at the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah. And it
I
wasn't my
knew
goal
that.
either. I did not go out to
Yeah.
become a sober person. It just happened through the exact
Right.
same process of getting awareness, giving myself some break, changing my mindset around things, right? Learning how to
Hmm.
feel my feelings. And then eventually, when you learn how to be a human without needing to escape, you
Hmm.
realize you don't need alcohol and it serves no benefit and it doesn't even taste great.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, right. And I mean, yeah, yes. I mean, that's all exactly right. And I think like to anybody who's considering joining, or who has joined, I think like just the only thing you have to do, like if you know that I don't even want to say if you know that there is a problem. I wouldn't have said to you at the beginning, I have a problem with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
What I knew was that I didn't like how it made me feel. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that I wasn't necessarily choosing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like it was sort of out of my control in the sense that I was doing it more than I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
If that's where you are, join the group. And then the only requirement is for you to be honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
The people that I see struggle, it's because, and you do such a good job of coaching them in the Facebook group, on like just calling out their BS.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, well, in a very nice way, but like, I heard you say X, Y, and Z, but what else could be true? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing a lot of excuses in what you're saying. And like, what if we just threw those out the window? Because it is true. Like, there are a million reasons why you can talk yourself into continuing to drink.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you 10 right now. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing to really be honest about how it makes you feel and how you want to live your life and who
Mm-hmm.
you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to do those things and use the tools that you offer, then you will figure out what it looks like. You don't have to have the goal in mind.
Yeah.
The big picture goal at the end.
Yeah. I like to call that stop fighting for your problems.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Stop convincing yourself that you're special, that your problems are unique. Everybody has complicated lives. There's not one single, I've coached so many people now. Gone is the myth of the perfect family for me. Gone is the myth of a perfect life, right? Like I would look at social media years ago.
Same.
Or compare my friends' families and be like, I just wish I had that. It does not exist.
Mm-mm.
Okay? It doesn't exist. And your problems, although they are tragic at times and terrible, right? This is the human experience for every single person. And not everybody needs alcohol to cope.
Right.
Right? Not everybody does that. We have just been so conditioned because we drink, because of the society that we live in, that is a tool that's available. And sometimes it is. And I got to admit, when I was, going through postpartum depression after my third child, that was my tool. And I didn't know anything else. I didn't know how to do it differently. And I'm kind of thankful for it at that time. But now I know better. And now I know that there's other ways and other ways of being that are so much better for you. And I probably will never shut up about it. So.
Well, and like when you really think about it, using it as a coping mechanism, it still is just a coping mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
That's like instant gratification.
Yeah.
And I did the exact same thing. I also had postpartum depression with both of my kids. And I agree with you. Like it provided real relief to me when I was really struggling. But all of that stuff is still sitting there.
Yes.
So like
it's a Band-Aid. Yeah.
Yes. And my anxiety, since I've not been drinking, my anxiety is so much better. I read something that was talking about how when you are drinking as a coping mechanism, your body is always trying to get back to equilibrium, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like balance. So if you're euphoric from the alcohol, eventually that's going to come out of your system, and then you're going to feel depressed because your body's trying to get back to normal.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, I hear you 100%, but I wish someone had told me at some point before you, like, there's, like you said, there's another way.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, and I think
I don't know.
people just get there when they're ready to hear the messaging too. Like when you're ready to hear it, when you're ready and committed to figuring it out and taking it the pace that you need to be taking it at, and it looks different for everybody. Not everybody is going to have the same path as Amy. Some people it takes 18 months, 2 years before they get here. Just let yourself have the time and space to explore it.
Yes.
And just know that there's no prescribed timing of any of this stuff, and it can happen forwards and backwards and all different directions. So yeah.
Well, and I'd also say that I'm continuing with Alive AF even though I'm not drinking anymore. And it's really not about, like, I don't feel the need at this point. I'm not saying I never will, but I don't feel the need to have like accountability buddies or anything like that. It's that you say it all the time. It's not about the alcohol. Like there is still so much I want to explore about my thought patterns and my goals and all of that the work that you do, even if you continue drinking for the rest of your life, the work that you provide in your group about how to manage your thoughts and your feelings and just that education is huge. I mean, I'm teaching it to my kids because it's just it's a level of emotional maturity that I feel like not many people are exposed to, without actively seeking it out. So it's about so much more than quitting drinking, I think.
It really is. It's about having boundaries for yourself, understanding, learning about yourself, what's good, what are good things for you, what aren't so great things for you, exploration, improving your relationships, becoming a mature adult who's in charge of their life, right? Like all of that stuff. And
it's finding out what you want and what makes you happy and all that you're capable of. And there's nothing better than that. I mean, there really isn't.
Yeah. I think we lose track of that after a certain age, after kids, career progression. We forget that, like, who are we? What do we want, right? We just get in the role of it all. And that's why we numb sometimes. It's because we're not doing for ourselves and we're not paying attention to ourselves. So getting back to that exploration is super fun. And I'm so glad that you came in and that you're excited about 2024. And tell them a little bit about your book idea, if you want.
Oh, sure. So a little very tiny background. I was an elementary school teacher for a few years and have been in education for a long time. And my sweet spot was always kiddos that were like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, that upper elementary level. And I, as a kid, dealt with a lot of anxiety. And my daughter's dealing with similar things right now, but nothing that's like, I feel like people hear that and they think immediately like, we need special education or an individual education plan. It's like very normal adolescent stuff, but it's really hard on the kid. And I remember it being really hard on me, and I know it's been really hard on her. So during one of my guided meditations, thanks to the retreat, I just had this idea hit me that, and I love writing. I always have. It comes easily to me, which is awesome. I just had this idea hit me that I could create a short story, choose your own adventure book for kids between ages, say, 8 to 11, where it's kids that they can relate to dealing with situations that are common for kids that age to stress about. And then they can choose which avenue the protagonist goes down. And there's no right or wrong answer. Each just takes them down a different path. And the goal is to help kids sort of create their own toolbox of strategies that they can use at home on their own to get through some of this stuff. And I want to have a corresponding journal that goes with it that's age appropriate to let them work through it. And then resources for parents and eventually schools to help implement it with kids on a bigger scale. So super pumped about it. Boom! Right? No big deal.
No big deal, but that's what happens when you get the alcohol out of the way. This is Alive AF. This
Yes,
is
it
what
is.
I'm so like, I love helping women come through the tunnel, like get over their over drinking, and then like let's go do something really exciting and awesome.
And I have not been this excited about, I love my job. I really do. Like, I really like what I do on a daily basis, but I have not been this excited about something creative since I was a kid, honestly.
Love it. It's so good.
Yeah. So I have you to thank for that.
Well, you were the one that let yourself be open to it, right? And were open to the coaching and followed instructions like the good little student you are.
I am gold star. Really,
but you
though,
did
I tell
it.
you all
You
the
did
time,
it.
I can't say it enough. You have a gift. I would tell everybody that I know to come work with you. Honestly, like even if they don't think they have a problem with alcohol, I just think you do amazing things. So
Thank you.
I appreciate you, and I hope you keep doing what you're doing. The world needs you.
I'm just getting started, Amy.
I know, and I can't wait to follow along.
I know, it's so fun and exciting, right? Like I still, like 5.5 years in, even, that's how long I've been in business. I'm like, ooh, what do I get to do now? Like, it's so fun to chart your own course, I think. And it's exciting to not know. I don't know. I'm still reinventing things. I'm still like being creative and coming up with new ideas and implementing that. And I wouldn't be able to do that if I still had alcohol in my life, because that would be the distraction of the century,
Yes, absolutely. I think too, all the work that you help us do with like actually feeling our feelings, it's made me a much more confident and self-aware person. In that, like, I mean, I told you when I first started thinking about all this, and this has escalated very quickly, this book writing situation.
I know, because we were just in Mexico 2 weeks ago, so and she's already started writing it.
So right. But I've had like when I just allow myself to dream big, my brain goes in all different directions. And I've already been able to really quickly be like, oh, I could do this. No, that doesn't sound good. And just like shoo it away. Like, that's not the thing that I want to do. And I think, I was a classic people pleaser, still fight against that a lot. But I think just knowing what feels good to me and being able to very easily identify those feelings is like, that's the secret. To be able to know this is the right way, this is the wrong way.
Feeling into your body as a compass. Does this feel open and expansive, or does this feel like, that doesn't feel right? Yep. You know that because you know yourself and you know what feelings are, right? It makes making decisions and navigating difficult situations or fun, decisions to make so much easier, because you're like, yeah, this feels right. Nope, this doesn't. Okay, keep moving forward. Yeah.
Right. Well, and to learn that it's okay to rely on my feelings. Yeah. I think as women, as little girls, we're told so often, like, push those down and be quiet and don't make a fuss.
Right.
It's like, okay, my feelings are actually there for a reason. Yes. And if it doesn't feel right, I shouldn't do it. Right. That's huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Any final words of wisdom, Amy? Thank you so much.
You're just a magician, and I love you. And I want everybody to sign up for a retreat, and I want everybody to join Alive AF. And I think, so I'm going to say this, even though I don't think that maybe it's endorsed, it's Angela Mascenik endorsed, but I would challenge everybody who's listening to this podcast, because if you're listening to this podcast, you have probably already started questioning your relationship with alcohol in some way. I would strongly encourage you to try to take a longer break at some point. I'm not saying you have to give up alcohol forever. And I'm not even necessarily saying you have to just like sign up and white knuckle through Dry January. Because like I told you, I did 3 months dry, and was white knuckling. I want you to try to commit to getting excited and being open to what this journey could offer you without counting down the days, just to see how it feels. Because I think once you see how it feels, you'll have a lot more clarity around what it is that you really want.
I love that. Thank you. That's a perfect segue, because I am supporting Dry January. AngelaMascenik.com/Dry January. And you'll get some of those tools, to sample with and to try and to give yourself that break, so you can get some clarity and you can feel better and get a baseline going of what it feels like to give your body a break, your mind a break, to apply some of the tools, to change your thoughts, to allow the feelings so you're not just white knuckling, right? And then decide. I think it's a great opportunity. So thank you for sharing that. I'm a component of chart your own course or choose your own adventure, like your book, right?
Yes. Yes.
But I also took a long break in my journey before I decided to quit. That was a part of my process, is I got to experience what that felt like. And it was amazing.
Yes.
And I wanted more of that. So
exactly.
Yeah.
As soon as I felt it, it was over.
Yeah.
I just,
Yep.
and I just don't want you to miss out on that,
Yeah.
if it is something that feels right for you, if you're listening.
Yes. Thank you. All right, Amy.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Oh, Angela, I would spend every day with you if I
could. All right. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Okay. Have a good one.
Thanks. Oh my gosh. Who loved that episode as much as me? Well, thank you so much, Amy, for coming on. It's an absolute pleasure to discuss all the things with you. Thank you for giving us your time and special insights. It will be very, very helpful for everybody listening. And as mentioned in the podcast, don't forget to sign up for my Dry January workshops. So I'm kicking off Dry January on Thursday, January 4th, with a free workshop called Dry January. It's going to help you get set up to be alcohol-free for the month of January. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to have another free class called Beyond Dry January. And if you register for this, you get automatically signed up for both classes. But the end of the month class will be to help you decide what it looks like going forward, whether you reintegrate or reintroduce alcohol back into your life in a mindful way, or if you decide to keep going by being alcohol-free. I'm going to give you some good tools and strategies to help make those decisions that feel good for you. And I'm very excited about it. So don't miss this opportunity. Even if you're not sure if you want to go 30 days without alcohol, or if you don't think that you can do it, I really want you to sign up for the Dry January workshop. So it's angelamascenik.com/Dry January. All right, friends, we'll see you then. Bye. I want you to check out angelamascenik.com/AliveAF. You know what it's like to have a desire to cut back on your drinking, right? You start to read books, listen to podcasts, try things, but you might not be able to yet put all the pieces and suggestions together in a way that actually makes sense and works for you. You might struggle with beating yourself up after an overdrink. You might get frustrated with yourself when you take 2 steps forward and then another 2 steps back, and get overwhelmed with what's right and wrong about your relationship with alcohol. Your friends tell you that you should be able to have just 1 drink, and it isn't a big deal. You might be white-knuckling through urges and resisting instead of peacefully processing them. And you might struggle with your identity as someone who has enjoyed having a lot of wine or alcohol in your life. It's around you all of the time. It's what you do and who you are. Well, after 5 years of successfully coaching hundreds of women through these struggles, I have created the Alive AF membership, where women like you can learn the basics on what it takes to cut back and reach your goals with alcohol, whether it is to just drink less or totally quit. And when you join, you will get the exact framework I used to change my own relationship with alcohol and still use today, that has led me to be alcohol-free for over 5 years. You're going to get access to my resources, videos, and worksheets that have been proven to change and reduce how much you drink. Every day you can ask questions, share your obstacles, and get coaching and direct support on the challenges you will face with love and no judgment. Also, you will get immediate access to workshops like uncovering your alcohol identity and changing it, how to say no to things that don't support your new identity or life or goals, aka boundaries. A workshop called Creating Emotional Agency, and another one, How to Manage Your Mind to Succeed at Your Goals, and more. Every month we have a brand new workshop. These workshops are filled with step-by-step prompts and instruction to help you create the exact relationship with alcohol that is best for you. My mission and vision for Alive AF is to be a hub of support and resources for women to come and learn how to do what is best for them and becoming more alive in the process. When you join, you're going to learn how to take care of yourself better, how to feel good and become more alive and go after the life that you really want. I want this membership to be affordable and an easy solution where you can get all the help you need in one simple place whenever you need it. So, no need to go read another book, find a new podcast, attend a free webinar, or go down the path of piecemealing it all together. Join Alive AF and have it all there in one place for you anytime you need it. So, go to angelamascenik.com/AliveAF and enrollment is open right now. See you inside.